fun and math is great, but now it's time for art with Miss Kate.
Buenos dias, artistas. Hello, boys and girls. Emmylou the art dog and I have a fun project for you today. I'm going to do a bad case of the stripes in English today, and then I'll read it tomorrow in Spanish, okay? If I read both languages in one lesson, it'll make our movie just too long. So, here's the English version, and tomorrow we'll have the Spanish version. And then we're going to make some artwork out of envelopes, stamps, kind of a collage made of pieces of things that I've been saving. As you recall, I've asked you to save things so we can make art out of it. So, A Bad Case of the Stripes by David Shannon. Camilla Cream loved lima beans, but she never ate them. All of her friends hated lima beans, and she wanted to fit in. Camilla was always worried about what other people thought of her. Today she was fretting even more than usual. It was the first day of school, and she couldn't decide what to wear. There were so many people to impress. She tried on 42 outfits, but none seemed quite right. She put on a pretty red dress and looked in the mirror. Then she screamed. Her mother ran into the room and screamed too. "Oh, my heavens!" she cried. "You're completely covered with stripes." This was certainly true. Camilla was striped from head to toe. She looked like a rainbow. Mrs. Cream felt Camilla's forehead. "Do you feel all right?" she asked. "I feel fine," Camilla answered, "but look at me." "You get back in bed this instant," her mother ordered. "You're not going to school today." Camilla was relieved. She didn't want to miss the first day of school, but she was afraid of what the other kids would say, and she had no idea what to wear with those stripes. That afternoon, Dr. Bumble came to examine Camilla. "Most extraordinary," he exclaimed. "I've never seen anything like it. Are you having any coughing, sneezing, runny nose, aches, pains, chills, hot flashes, dizziness, drowsiness, shortness of breath, or uncontrollable twitching?" "No," Camilla told him. "I feel fine." "Well then," Dr. Bumble said, turning to Mrs. Cream, "I don't see any reason why she shouldn't go to school tomorrow. Here's some ointment that should help clear up those stripes in a few days, and if it doesn't, you know where to reach me." And off he went. Even her tongue is striped. The next day was a disaster. Everyone at school laughed at Camilla. They called her Camilla Crayon and Night of the Living Lollipop. She tried her best to act as if everything were normal, but when the class said the Pledge of Allegiance, her stripes turned red, white, and blue, and she broke out in stars. The other kids thought this was great. One yelled out, "Let's see some purple polka dots." Sure enough, Camilla turned all purple polka dotty. Someone else shouted, "Checkerboard!" And a pattern of squares covered her skin. Soon everyone was calling out different shapes and colors, and poor Camilla was changing faster than you can change channels on a TV. That night, Mr. Harms, the school principal, called. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Cream," he said. "I'm going to have to ask you to keep Camilla home from school. She's just too much of a distraction, and I've been getting calls from the other parents. They're afraid those stripes might be contagious." Camilla was so embarrassed. She couldn't believe that 2 days ago everyone liked her, and now no one wanted to be in the same room as her. Her father tried to make her feel better. "Is there anything I can get you, sweetheart?" he asked. "No, thank you," sighed Camilla. What she really wanted was a nice plate of lima beans, but she had been laughed at enough for one day. Well, yes, I see," Dr. Bumble mumbled when Mr. Cream phoned the next day. "I think we'd better bring in the specialist. We'll be right over." About an hour later, Dr. Bumble arrived with 4 people in long white coats. He introduced them to the Creams. "This is Dr. Groff, Dr. Sponge, Dr. Cricket, and Dr. Young." Then the specialist went to work on Camilla. They squeezed and jabbed, tapped and tested. It was very uncomfortable. "Well, it's not the mumps," concluded Dr. Groff, "or the measles," said Dr. Sponge. "Definitely not chicken pox," put in Dr. Cricket. "Or sunburn," said Dr. Young. "Try these," said the specialist, and they each handed her a bottle filled with different colored pills. "Take one of each before bed," said Dr. Groff, and then they filed out the door, followed by Dr. Bumble. That night, Camilla took her medicine. It was awful. When she woke up the next morning, she did feel different, but when she got dressed, her clothes didn't fit right. She looked in the mirror, and there, staring back at her, was a giant multicolored pill with her face on it. Dr. Bumble rushed over as soon as Mrs. Cream called, but this time, instead of the specialists, he brought the experts. Dr. Gord and Mr. Mellon were the finest scientific minds in the land. Once again, Camilla was poked and prodded, looked at and listened to. The experts wrote down lots of numbers, and then they huddled together and whispered. Dr. Gord finally spoke. It might be a virus, he announced with authority. Suddenly, fuzzy little virus balls appeared all over Camilla. Or possibly some form of bacteria, said Mr. Mellon. Out popped squiggly little bacteria tails. Or it could be a fungus, added Dr. Gord. Instantly, Camilla was covered with different colored fungus blotches. The experts looked at Camilla and then at each other. We need to go over these numbers again back at the lab, Dr. Gord explained. We'll give you a call when we know something. But the experts didn't have a clue, much less a cure. By now, the TV news had found out about Camilla. Reporters from every channel were outside her house, telling the story of the bizarre case of the incredible changing kid. Soon a huge crowd was camped out on the front lawn. The Creams were swamped with all kinds of remedies, from psychologists, allergists, herbalists, nutritionists, psychics, an old medicine man, a guru, and even a veterinarian. Each so-called cure only added to poor Camilla's strange appearance until it was hard to even recognize her. She sprouted roots and berries and crystals and feathers in a long furry tail, but nothing worked. One day, a woman who called herself an environmental therapist claimed she could cure Camilla. Close your eyes, she said. Breathe deeply and become one with your room. I wish you wouldn't have said that, Camilla groaned. Slowly, she started to melt into the walls of her room. Her bed became her mouth, her nose was a dresser, and 2 paintings were her eyes. The therapist screamed and ran out of the house. What are we going to do? Cried Mrs. Cream. It's just getting worse and worse. And she began to cry. At that moment, Mr. Cream heard a quiet little knock at the front door. He opened it, and there stood an old woman who was just as plump and sweet as a strawberry. Excuse me, she said brightly, but I think I can help. She went into Camilla's room and looked around. My goodness, she said with a shake of her head. What we have here is a bad case of the stripes, one of the worst I've ever seen. She pulled a container of small green beans from her bag. Here, she said, these might do the trick. Are those magic beans? Asked Mrs. Cream. Oh my, no, replied the kind old woman. There's no such thing. These are just plain old lima beans. I bet you'd like some, wouldn't you? She asked Camilla. Camilla wanted a big heaping plateful of lima beans more than just about anything, but she was still afraid to admit it. Yuck, she said. No one likes lima beans, especially me. Oh dear, the old woman said sadly. I guess I was wrong about you. She put the beans back in her bag and started towards the door. Camilla watched the old woman walk away. Those beans would taste so good, and being laughed at for eating them was nothing compared to what she'd been going through. She finally couldn't stand it. Wait, she cried. The truth is I really love lima beans. I thought so, the old woman said with a smile, and she took a handful of beans and popped them into Camilla's mouth. Mmm, said Camilla. Delicious. Suddenly, the branches, feathers, and squiggly tails began to disappear. The whole room swirled around, and when it stopped, there stood Camilla. Everything was back to normal. I'm cured, she shouted. Yes, said the woman. I knew the real you was in there somewhere. And she patted Camilla on the head, and then she went outside and vanished into the crowd. Afterward, Camilla wasn't quite the same. Some of the kids at school said she was weird, but she didn't care a bit. She ate all the lima beans she wanted, and she never even had a touch of the stripes again. Entonces mañana vamos a leer la misma cuenta, un caso grave de rayas, in Spanish. So, if you've been watching my at-home lessons for a little while, you've heard me ask you to save things so we can make art, make a collage out of saved items. And I have been saving envelopes, and I've been saving stamps, And this is a Post-it. There's a little note written on the other side. I saved that. Here I've got some cut-up envelopes because I made this. I even cut a piece of bacon off of this box because I thought it kind of matched. It had stripes on it and it kind of matched the flag because she turned into the American flag when they said the Pledge of Allegiance. This says Home Sweet, and here's a home that came on an envelope, and I just cut it up. Here I used that little cellophane window and I put some barcodes in there because those are stripes. Okay? I used a colored piece of paper because I thought what I cut would show up better. You do not have to use a colored piece of paper. You can use any paper you want. It can be white, it can be from a brown paper grocery bag. You're the artist, you're in charge. So what I did, say I want to use this piece right here, which I thought was kind of cool. Cut right here. And now I have a surface I can do art on. It's kind of an atypical surface, but these are atypical times, so why not? There we go. And look, the inside of the envelope has a pattern. And as you recall, Camilla wasn't just striped. She was all kinds of patterns, so I'm going to use this. I think that would be very cool. And I'm going to overlap. We've talked about that word before. Right now my hands are overlapping. That's a common technique in art. Let's say I want to use, oh, here's a different shape. This is a little bit, it's not quite as much of a rectangle. So let me try this one. Here we go. Here we go. I want to get another one of those cellophane windows. I like those. And before I glued down my pieces of envelope, I decorated them. And for this project, I used colored pencil, crayon, watercolor, marker, and cray-pa. I used all the art supplies we've been using in our Art at Home series. Of course, you can use whatever supplies you want. So here's another piece. I can do some more overlapping like this and get that cool little window right here. I've got this pattern here. What if I want a piece of yellow? I don't have any yellow yet. Let's get some yellow in there. And I think it might look nice to have some more patterns, and I'm noticing that inside this envelope is a different pattern. So I'm going to cut this out so I can get this pattern right here, and I'm going to do some more overlapping. Okay, and then we're going to do some shortcuts on pretending so that my demonstration doesn't take too long. Okay, so I could put this one right here. I could have this pattern peeking through the cellophane. I like that. I could put my yellow right here. I could put this right here. Now let's say I want to add some stripes or patterns to these. Before I glue them down, that's when I would decorate them. I just don't want to dump my whole paper off because then I might forget my placement of my items. So maybe I want to start with a rainbow because she started out as a rainbow. I don't know if you remember the fictional name for rainbows, Roy G. Biv. Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. That helps us remember the order of a rainbow. So there's my red. Here's my orange. Now we're going to do a shortcut. You're going to pretend I colored in the whole rainbow on this envelope. Scrap. Okay, shortcut, shortcut. Now let's say I want to do some cray-pa on this. Because I know cray-pa will show up on yellow paper really well because it's a very thick art supply. And remember, you don't have to only do stripes. She also turned into dots. She turned into checkers. She turned into all kinds of things. So I'm going to decorate this with cray-pa. We're going to do another shortcut. This isn't finished. I would add more cray-pa. Put this right here. Ooh, maybe I want these peeking through the cellophane. Maybe I changed my mind a little. So what you do is you decorate your papers, play around with your placement, and then you glue it with a glue stick, and you end up with something like this. Of course, it doesn't have to look just like mine. It can look however you want, because you're the artist, you're in charge. All right, boys and girls, tomorrow we'll have the Spanish version of Un caso grave de las rayas. Happy art, Miss